So I've got a weird talent. I find four-leaf clovers all the time. I've got a collection of hundreds of them. My friends often ask how I find so many. They think that I have some sort of gift, but actually, I just take the time to look for them when most people don't. So when I see a patch of clovers, I don't examine each one. I simply scan them for something that stands out. And when I spot that, I dive in. This pattern-seeking mindset is something that I've carried over to the guitar. Over the years, I've learned to recognize patterns all over the neck, which has made a world of difference in my playing. I can now memorize songs faster, play with a lot more freedom, make fewer mistakes. But here's the catch. Most guitarists don't even realize that these patterns exist. They think that learning them might stifle their creativity, but in reality, it's the opposite. Learning these patterns gives you the structure to break free and to play with soul. As Picasso said, learn the rules like a pro so that you can break them like an artist. So if you want to supercharge your guitar playing, you need to learn the 3 essential skills that every guitarist should master. The number system, knowing which chords belong to each key. The cage system, how to play those chords anywhere on the neck. And the landmark pentatonic system, how to solo across the entire fretboard based on 2 main shapes. Once you recognize these patterns, you'll be able to see similarities in chord progressions across different keys, identify commonalities in solos no matter the key, recognize the scale patterns that form the foundation of the solos that you're learning, spot the chord shapes that make up your favorite rhythm guitar parts, write songs faster by seeing the connections between chords and melodies, and consistently hit the right note or chord because you'll understand the patterns that contain them. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for in your playing, and you'll start seeing your guitar in a whole new way. And as always, download the diagrams and the backing track from this video by clicking the link in the description below. So let's look at the Doobie Brothers song, Listen to the Music. So this video is not meant to be a how to play tutorial on the song. I just want to illustrate some of the benefits of knowing these 3 essential skills. Learning songs faster, seeing connections between different songs, putting things that you learn in one song into other songs, and adding to your vocabulary. The number system. So this classic song is in the key of E major. So the first thing that I want to know are what are the chords in the key of E major? So if we take the E major scale, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. We can use a simple formula to figure out the chords in the key. In any key, the 1, 4, and 5 chords are major, and the 2, 3, and 6 chords are minor. So for the key of E, the 1 chord is major, the 2 and 3, F sharp and G sharp, are minor. The 4, A, is major, the 5 is also major, and the 6 is minor, C sharp minor, and that is the relative minor. So the key of E and the key of C sharp minor are essentially the same key. So these are the likely chords in this song and the likely chords for any song in the key of E major or the key of C sharp minor. Now here's a list of some classic songs in E major or C sharp minor, and all of these songs mainly draw from these 6 chords. So the intro and the main part of the verse of this song is just 2 chords. E to A, or the 1 chord to the 4 chord. It's a very common progression. The thing that makes it interesting is they're not just playing cowboy chords, E to A. They're playing practical caged shapes to craft a really cool rhythm guitar part. So many guitarists get stuck using cage because they are taught the theoretical cage shapes, some of which are quite awkward and quite difficult. But I want to show you what I call the practical caged shapes and how they actually get used by the pros. Let's look at the first chord of the song, E major. So the open E chord is what we call the E shape of E. Next up is the D shape of E, and it's connected by this note. And the D shape is usually shown like this. And that is the theoretical D shape, but the practical D shape that most pros use is simply this. Sliding our regular D chord up 2 frets. Then we have the C shape of E, connected by these 3 notes. And the theoretical caged shape of C is pretty difficult. I very rarely hear this shape actually get used in songs. However, the practical C shape is a very usable shape. Now we have the A shape of E. And this is a very practical shape. Many of you may know this shape already. And last up is the G shape of E. And it's connected by these three notes. And the theoretical G shape of E is quite difficult. And it's honestly one of the main reasons why many people give up on caged. But the practical G shape is quite usable. And it is actually the shape used for the first chord of this song. They added a hammer-on to give the chord a little bit of movement, and they added the open low E string as a bass note to the shape since it is an E chord, but you can clearly see that this is the practical G shape of E in use in a song. This allowed them to come up with a much more interesting guitar part rather than just strumming an open E chord. So the next chord of the verse is A major, and going through those same shapes for A major looks like this. First, the open A chord is what we call the A shape of A, and then that connects to the G shape of A with these three notes. The theoretical G shape, that's quite difficult, so the practical G shape looks like that. Then next up would be the E shape, which is this full bar chord, or you can do this little practical fragment of it down here that looks a lot like an F chord. Then we can connect from the E shape, from this note, to the D shape of A. And lastly, this connects to the C shape of A. And again, this theoretical C shape is quite awkward, so the more usable practical C shape is actually what gets used in this song. Again, they add a hammer-on. In this case, they bar the 9th fret with their index finger and hammer on the rest of the practical C shape. And because the chord is an A chord, they add in the open A string as a bass note. So by using these practical cage shapes, they took a simple 2-chord progression and turned it into something much more interesting. So moving on, the end of the verse is C sharp minor, B, A, and then they go back to E. And you can see that all 4 of these chords are in the key of E. So far, the song is simply the 1, 4, 5, and 6 chords of the key of E. The chorus is C sharp minor to A 3 times in a row. That is simply the 6th chord to the 4th chord. Nothing complicated or unexpected. Then at the end of the chorus, they go to F sharp major and then to A. So the thing to note is that the F sharp chord is the 2 chord in the key of E, and the 2 chord should be minor, not major. So this is what we call a non-diatonic chord. Diatonic is a fancy way of saying in key. So a non-diatonic chord is just a chord that is not truly in key. Non-diatonic chords can sound unexpected and really add interest to a song. Even non-musicians have an unconscious knowledge of the sound of diatonic chord progressions because we hear them all the time. Most songs are diatonic. So when a non-diatonic chord happens, it can really catch the listener's ear. So what's going on with this major 2 chord? Well, there are lots of non-diatonic chords that can be used in writing a song. And basically those chords come from related keys that have many of the same notes. And I'm not going to go into explaining where that major 2 came from in this video because it's not all that important for now. But what is important to note is 2 things about that chord. First is simply that the major 2 chord sounds good. Therefore, if you are writing a song, you can add the major 2 chord to your chord progression vocabulary. And one important thing to note is we wouldn't have known that if we didn't know and analyze the song using the number system. The second thing is because that chord is non-diatonic, we may need to adjust the notes that we would use to solo over that chord. So oftentimes, if you are playing a song and the pentatonic scale or the full major scale or mode that you are using is not working, well, you should look at the chord progression and see if there are any non-diatonic chords. That is likely the reason why a scale seems to fail at certain times in the progression. For this particular chord, the major 2 chord, we don't need to adjust for it as the E major pentatonic scale will work just fine over it, but it is something to note that when you run across a non-diatonic chord, you may have to interact with that chord. The landmark pentatonic system. So now let's look at how to solo over the song. So again, this video is not meant to be a how to play this song video. It is meant to let you see how to use the 3 essential skills: the number system, the cage system, and the landmark pentatonic system to help you understand songs, learn songs quicker, and help you take concepts and ideas that you learn from one song and apply those concepts to other songs. So let's find the landmark pentatonic shapes for the key of E. These are going to be the main shapes that most guitarists use to solo with. I can use these shapes to improvise or create my own solo with, or use these shapes to make learning the solo played on the record much easier to figure out. So first we find E on the E string, and let's play that note here at the 12th fret instead of open, and you'll see why in a second. Since we are in E major, we will put our pinky on that note. So remember, for shape 1 of the pentatonic scale, we would put our index finger on the root to find the minor pentatonic scale. There's E minor pentatonic, and we would put our pinky on the root to find the major pentatonic scale, which is what we're going to use in this song. Here's E major pentatonic. So we can then apply the diagonal extensions of shape number 1 by moving back 2 frets from the lowest note, and it gives us this. Similarly, we now find the note E on the A string, place our pinky on it, and now we play shape number 4 of the pentatonic scale. We can then move back 2 frets from the lowest note and play the diagonal extensions of shape number 4. That gives us all of this to work with. So let's start with shape number 1 of the E major pentatonic at the 9th fret. Then I can move back 2 frets to do the diagonal extensions of shape number 1. Then I could go to shape number 4 of the pentatonic scale here at the 4th fret. Then I can move back 2 frets from here and play the diagonal extensions of shape number 4. And then I can just use all of those shapes to go all over the neck. If you listen to the song, you can hear that the guitar solo, like many guitar solos, is almost entirely played on these two landmark pentatonic shapes and their extensions. If I were to choose to learn the solo note for note, and personally I rarely do, but I would locate these shapes and improvise on them before starting to tackle learning the solo. This will probably give me a good idea of the shapes that are used in the solo. So again, you can download the diagrams and the backing track used in this video by clicking the link in the description. So you can see that knowing these three essential skills can help you learn songs faster, see connections between different songs in different keys, allow you to put things that you learn from one song into others, and add to your overall vocabulary, not just learn licks to use in one song. But to take your solos to the next level, watch this video where I do a deep dive into actually zooming in on the chord changes when soloing, like the pros often do. And please like and subscribe if my videos are helpful to you. It lets YouTube show it to more players. Thanks. I'll see you next week.